Baby, I've been out for so long, longer now than I was in. And I ain't saying I'm some cowboy. Right now I'd go back again. But I'm so thankful for my family, my wife and our 2 kids. Oh, most nights I thank God they don't know where I've been. We be painted on our faces, we be learn to walk the wire, where they fed us just like lions, and they watched us jump through fire. The way we walked around in circles, the way we worked into the ground. Well, I may not miss the circus, but I damn sure miss the clown. Oh, damn, I miss those clowns. So this is why you find me out here, in a place you never feel. And I know that you don't understand, and I pray you never will. We be painted on our faces, we be learn to walk wild, where they fed us just like lions, and they watched us jump through fire. The way we walked around in circles, the way we worked into the ground. Well, I may not miss the circus, the way they fed us just like lions, the way they watched us jump through fire. When they taught us we were fearless men, they turned us into liars. The way we walked around in circles, the way they trained us just like hounds. Well, I may not miss the circus, but I damn sure miss the clown. Oh, I may not miss the circuit, I will always be a clown.
And welcome to another edition of the True Patriot Outfitters podcast. Folks, I hope you enjoyed that little introduction we had there. That is Tyler J. Satterfield of the Stop 22 Tour, Romans Warrior Foundation. Tyler, if you remember, we had a benefit for him. He's been going through another fight. Looks like he's getting it whooped now, and we're just hoping for all recovery and we get that singing voice back. Check out the Stop 22 Tour, man. You want to see some amazing artists. These are veterans writing music for veterans. It is moving, to say the least. If it doesn't hit you in the feels, you're already dead. I'm pretty sure of that. Listen, man, the season's getting going here on the True Patriot Outfitters side. We have our first booking going on Saturday. We're going out. We're taking a Navy vet out. There's a lot open here, so if you're in Colorado, if you're a first responder, if you are a veteran out there, let's go bass fishing. I know Colorado isn't really known for bass fishing. Trust me, they're out here and we'll get you going. Speaking of bass fishing, two of our biggest clubs getting ready to get kicked off April 15th. We have the Colorado Kayak Fishing Club going to John Martin. They're going out way down South Colorado, and they're going to go battle the wind down there and see what they can put in the boat. That should be an awesome event for them, getting their first one started. And then we have, I believe it is, if I'm right, I'm looking at the 22nd, I think. I don't have my calendar in front of me. I'm sorry, James, if I got that wrong. Colorado Kayak Bassmasters kicks off our first event of the season, which will be at Chatfield Reservoir. Folks, check out the Colorado Kayak Fishing Club. If you're looking to get into kayak fishing, especially here in Colorado, that is the club you want to connect with. Not even if you don't want to fish tournaments. Get involved in this club because the people there are phenomenal. The members are amazing. They do great work for the community. And you will get all the information you need in the world to get out kayak fishing. That's the name of the game. All right, last but not least, let's pay the bills. This episode brought to you by Blackfish, because you can't choose the weather, but you can choose the gear you wrap yourself up to protect you from that weather. And this time of year, man, I'm telling you, between the cold, the rain, everything else, I have been loving life in my Blackfish gear. Dealing with fishing and working there and not dealing with the elements is amazing to have in your boat. Make sure you have good all-weather gear, and Blackfish is your definitely is a choice if you're up in the air and you don't know which way to go, or if you're ready to step into the real gear. Go check out Blackfish. All right, that's that. Now, let's get down to the business here. The reason we are live, the reason we are here tonight. Lake Conway was the scene. Stop number 2 All-American Kayak Series Trail. Dude, to say this was a struggle bus for the field would be an understatement. But there was one dude that was like, psh, easy work. It was not easy work for this guy, but he absolutely is a hammer. And he has been gracious enough to join us here. He's doing a whirlwind of podcast, it looks like. So without further ado, let's bring in the man himself, Mr. Garrett Morgan. Garrett, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Hey, you bet, dude. We're very, very thankful that you decided to join us here.
Yeah, I was glad I was able to jump on. And, man, I tell you, I was listening to your intro there. And for those of us that went to that Bassmaster event at Chickamauga, I'm going to be checking out your Blackfish gear there, because mine completely failed me. And there's been a couple threads online from folks that fished that event that have been just kind of asking people, hey, did anybody stay dry? Because I'm telling you, some good rain gear would be a good investment for me about now. So I'll have to check that out.
I'm telling you right now, for kayak anglers, if it's a little bit of warmth you want to add to it as well, the Storm Skin is the most pliable. That stuff just hugs your body. Now, I will say, when I step in the water to launch the yak or whatever, if that inner lining gets wet, dude, it gets kind of heavy down on the bottom. But as long as you keep sealed up in there, yeah, man, it is 100% waterproof, windproof. And then just their rain gear in general, man, has never failed me from the boat days, and now it's even more, it's amplified in a kayak, right? Because, I mean, we can't move around. We can't shed water. You know,
I stopped at going to an event over in Tennessee last year at some point, just at the Bass Pro, and just kind of got their brand stuff, which was probably a mistake. And I tell you, it probably would have been worth the extra money to go a little deeper into something. So I'll check that out. And man, like you're saying about Conway, it was a struggle, and we'll get into that. But I'll tell you, like, I had 3 fish at 2 o'clock on day 1.
I had 3 fish at 9 p.m. I had 3 fish that night.
Yeah. So it even with it being my home lake, it was no walk in the park. I do think it played a huge advantage in day 2, though. But day 1, I think I was right there with everybody else, for the most part.
Now, about that, let me ask you this, because there's talked to a couple people down there post, tournament It is a known factor that we have Florida strain bass in there. Oh, are you still there? Looks like you're freezing up on me here. Where'd you go?
Okay, I'm back. You there?
There you are. Yeah, I'm here, brother. We got you.
There.
Yep. Can you hear me? Looks like folks hang with us here. Looks like we're getting a little bit of choppy.
Okay, I'm here. Are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. All right. So I'm on Wi-Fi, so I should be fine on my end.
It's possible, yeah. If it keeps getting choppy, a lot of times we can kill the video, and sometimes that'll.
I gotcha.
That'll do better, but yeah, we'll run it like this. See what we can do. You still got me?
I do. So
okay, good.
Where were you going?
What I was going to say was, we know that in that water at Conway, there are Florida strain bass. They've been put in there, so we know that that's in there. And what we also know is that the moment it gets cold, Florida strain bass lockjaw up. They do not like the cold. Do you think that had anything to do with kind of what we were seeing there? Was that, that water temperature flux or?
Yeah, absolutely. For folks that aren't familiar with the lake, the average depth is about 3.5 to 4 foot. Okay, wow. So I tell people, in some areas of that lake, we were in a post-spawn period. I mean, you get a couple 60, 70 degree days, and that's what the water temperature is if you know where to go look. Wow. Because it's just that shallow in some areas. And I was catching some shallow fish even in February. And I got a couple videos out on YouTube, where me and a buddy had gone out, caught him good on a trap, caught him good just swimming, some creature baits and stuff. And, those fish weren't in deep water. They're 4 foot or less. So I think some of it was there was a little bit of a post-spawn pattern going on as well. And, we caught them really good Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Okay. Thursday, I went out, and I was mainly just kind of checking different areas of the lake because it was a different Lake Conway than what we normally see. Normally, you only see that heavy, what I call coontail grass in Palarm. But every place I went on the lake, I found it, which was the first time that's ever happened on this lake, which is great for that lake. It's great for those Florida strain. It's great for that lake to be able to produce some of the size fish that it should. Right. I feel like that lake's been hurt a lot by not having a slot limit. People in the Mayflower Conway area are kind of notorious for, hanging yo-yos on the trees. Some people call those limb lines. And, if there'd be
tons of those.
Yeah, 4-pound bass on one of them. Someone's going to pick that off and cut the sides off of it. And it's going to be in a frying pan. Right. So I would love at some point if the Arkansas Game and Fish invest all the time and money they're talking about doing in the next couple of years to really, carve out some of the boat lanes, make it a little more passable for the bigger boats. I'm hoping that they'll also add a slot limit. I'm going to definitely lobby for that. I have a little bit of, influence in some areas with some of the bigger personalities here in the state as far as Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. So nice. Hopefully we can kind of get that going. But, we had a really good moving bait bite, really Monday through Wednesday. And, we do a little local pregame, kind of show on Thursday. And I was talking about that for the local trail that was going to take place, too, on Saturday. And, I kind of felt bad afterwards because I was like, telling everybody, hey, don't forget to leave your chatterbait. Don't make sure you don't leave your chatterbait at home. And man, when I went out that first day, I had a really good chatterbait bite going and pre-fishing in 3 foot of water on trees. And I bet you I ran 1.5 miles of nothing but trees and 3 foot of water and didn't get a single bite. So it was obvious that the tornado that came through on Friday, right. The changing, water temperatures definitely impacted those fish. And, you had to kind of adapt and change throughout the event.
And there was a ton of mud that come flying through there, too, which hits that shallow water fast, man.
Yeah, in this time of year, if you get a warm rain, you're fine. Those fish will actually go to it. But I went to the back of Alarm on day one, which is the creek, essentially the main creek that feeds it, the whole lake. And it was colder back there, and that was the direction I went on day one. I went off the ramp, went to the right, went right down that boat lane on the right side, hitting all those trees as quick as I could, just trying to get a bite. Had some good bites there in practice. I got to the back of that and found out the water temperature was 5 degrees cooler back there, way dirtier, and it didn't take me long to pull the plug on that deal and just completely go to the opposite side of the lake, to a north bank, which those north banks, they tend to stay warmer this time of year. They're getting that southern wind. They also tend to get some good sunlight throughout the course of the day. So I kind of just, went to an area I knew had a grass flat and went over there and at least try to make something happen.
So I launched from the northernmost ramp that was accessible up by Caney Creek.
Yeah.
So I launched there and went left right underneath the bridge. Tried to rip the tops of my poles off because from the day prior to that day, she come up apparently about 6 inches or so, just enough to catch the tips of my poles, make a hell of a racket. Oh man, the guys were looking at me like, what the hell? And I'm like, I guess she come up a little bit. But thankfully the rods made it. But yeah, I found the same thing, man. I went about a mile up.
Yep.
As far as, I felt like was still, legitimate up there. Still muddy. And yeah, the temperature just kept dropping the further I went. So I turned her around and started just, really floating it and drifting it and bumping the motor and kind of speed fishing my way back. And then I got on the other side of that bridge again. And then it started, we started seeing those 60-degree, water temps again, which seemed to be kind of the anything above 60, I was seeing a lot better luck. But speaking of that chatterbait, I lost the best fish that I had at the very end of day 2, about 2:30. I'm trying to cover water and I'm throwing a chatter, and I'm just hammering the bank with it and just kind of, I don't know, about half a cast out of the bank and just pulling it as I'm running back down. And I feel tension, and I'm thinking now I'm probably hooked up in some lily pads because I was pulling it right through the lilies. So I'm sitting there, so I'm reeling up on it, and I'm looking. By the time I realize that my line is starting to move out to deeper water, I'm like, oh crap, well the motor's still going, man. I'm going right at it.
Oh yeah, I hate when I do that.
So now I'm sitting here reeling like crazy and trying to hold up, and yeah, by the time I smashed the button with my foot and got it to, cut the motor, she jumped and boom, give me my chatterbait back. It was the best fish I had all day long. But it was definitely, when I was up there at Caney and coming out, I could see on day 1 with the amber glasses I had for low light, and I could see the color change starting on that main lake, and then by afternoon, dude, it was a definite chocolate milk. And it was slowly trying to creep its way, and then you had the mud, a little bit of stain coming from Caney coming down. So it's like, oh my gracious.
Yeah. It also didn't help that with the wind that we had on that day. Oh, man. When that wind hits those flats on that lake, because there's several areas that are only 2 foot of water, and that wind will, create mud lines all around that, and it'll push that mud all over the lake. And that's what we dealt with at Alarm quite a bit. But I'll tell you, I don't think you made a bad choice going out of Caney. Especially with the way the wind was that day. That's probably the only place on the lake you really could, kind of find some little nooks and crannies to truly kind of get out of it. That little area can be pretty good. It's some of the deepest water on the whole lake. I hate your bite wasn't better for you, but hey, I wouldn't beat yourself up too much about that decision because I told one of my buddies that he paddles. He doesn't have pedals. He doesn't have a motor. And he tried to fish some main lake stuff. I was like, dude, you should have went to Caney. Caney would have been the right spot for you. You could have probably tucked in out of the wind. And there's usually some fish around there. You battle the crappie fishermen quite a bit. There's usually a lot of folks in that lot. But that's a good area. It can be productive.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So we got somebody joining us here from Facebook who has not given Streamyard permission to use their name. You got to go back through and read the instructions there, whoever you are. I think this might actually be James Strawbridge. because
yeah, yeah.
he's talking drop shotting, and he wants to know if he can do it in 4 foot of water. That sounds like James.
You know, interestingly enough, you can drop
Oh
shot
sure.
in some of the shallow stuff, and they
You
don't see
bet.
that presentation a lot. And years ago, I actually ran, you know, 3 events in a row where I cashed a check on a drop shot. I don't think I fished over 8 foot of water
Yeah.
the entire time, and it was a June through July kind of run. And but they, you know, these lakes around here, they don't see that presentation a lot. So you know, you can come down and do some of those things that work on those deeper, clearer lakes and some of these shallow body of waters, and
Yeah.
that fish is just gonna just grab it just because you know they don't see it a ton. They see lots of chatterbaits, they see lots of jigs, they see lots of spinner baits, they see lots of big creature baits. You know, some of that finesse fishing stuff works really well here. And I'll tell you another thing that works really well is just throwing a Ned rig on cypress trees. I got desperate a few years back in an event, ended up doing that, and you know,
Uh-oh. Hang with us, folks. Looks like we got a little bit of connection here we're working with Mr. Morgan here, the Wi-Fi. We got to pull the cans tighter together. There you are.
yeah, there we go. Okay, I had to catch up, I guess. But
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, you know, I'd say you can definitely do that in some of these lakes. But
Sure. You know, up north of Minnesota, where I was at for about 10 years, there was a guy that he would literally throw right into lily pads. He would set up for like a power shot, basically, is what he was
mhm.
doing. He'd rig it weedless, and he would literally take a little bit heavier weight, and he'd throw it right into the little pockets in there, man, and he would just yoink them out of there all day long. It was crazy. You know,
Oh yeah,
to me, it seemed like a lot of extra stuff going on where I could just throw in a weightless Senko or just throw a Senko personally, but
yeah.
yeah, either way, but yeah, whatever you're comfortable
They
with,
work
right?
really well on brim beds here.
Right, right. That makes sense. Oh, you still there? We'll hang tight here, folks. Appreciate your patience. We'll work it out. There we go.
I'm back again. Sorry, man. I'm not
Hey,
sure. I mean, I'm showing I'm on Wi-Fi, so.
yeah, that's okay.
But anyways, yeah, they you know, the drop shot works really well here around brim beds. You can find something that's a little brim colored. You know, those fish will feed on brim year round here. You can always kind of fish shallow here because of that, which is kind of fun,
Right.
especially on Lake Conway.
Dude, that video that you put out afterwards, absolutely phenomenal. Not a
Thanks,
lot of
man.
not a lot of guys will do that. First off, your voiceover was the ticket. Oh my gosh, how I mean, being able to kind of narrate the thing and just
Yeah,
it, it was not only speaking to those of us who have been doing this, since dirt was invented, but it also would have been, I could just imagine somebody new listening to that going, "Oh, I see what he's doing there." Dude, that was, I don't know why people haven't thought of that before. I
yeah.
mean,
You
you're
know,
a
I
pioneer.
I had seen that feature on the software I used to edit the video, and I got to thinking about it. I was like, you know, I felt like I was cutting too much of the tournament out of some of the videos, and I just started, you know, kind of really getting into the YouTube thing in the last few months.
Right,
And
right.
it'd be fun if I can get one this weekend. I'm gonna try to take my oldest daughter turkey hunting, so she's never been. We'll see if we can get lucky. That'll make a cool video
Nice.
too. Um,
Nice.
but anyway, so you know, I felt like if you've already watched it, but you know, talking through that, what's going through my head when I locate a fish on a cypress tree and I know it's up there spawning, and I've thrown up there and I've missed. You know, it hits it first cast, and a lot of people, you know, that I have fished with will just blow right by that fish and keep going. And they won't stop, and they won't try different things, and they won't reset, and they won't stick there with it. And I've been lucky enough to be in the boat with some really good anglers over the years, and a lot of this knowledge it's been passed on to me. And you know, I got a chance to fish with a fellow from Illinois for a few years. I actually dated his granddaughter in college, and he would go to Lake Kissimmee and Lake Fork a ton, and
Nice.
we would bed fish quite a bit, and I just learned to be persistent from him. I mean, that dude would sit on a fish if he knew it was there until he caught the daggum thing. And, I've learned not to sit too long because that has bit me in the butt a little bit. But, just going through the process of, telling yourself you're going to catch that fish. You're going to get it to bite. Give it a couple different options. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it really is a mindset thing too. You can't let the fact that you missed a fish unravel you, because that's going to happen to everybody in the tournament.
Yep. One of the best stories I ever heard was, and I can't remember who it was. I'm paraphrasing a lot of this, but there was a guy that was talking about he was a cameraman maybe, or an official, or a marshal in a boat with KVD. KVD's out there struggling pretty rough, but finally starts figuring stuff out. He's got this jerk bait that he's throwing out there, hooks into one, gets it almost to the boat, and it comes loose.
Mm-hmm.
And before the guy that was watching can go, oh no, before
he slings another one out there,
throws it right back out.
Yeah, I've seen the video.
5 or 6, cast whatever, boink, gets another one. Yeah. His response, he turns around and doesn't, not upset. He goes, well, at least I know what they're eating.
Yeah.
That's what was in. I mean, that's what the goat. This is the guy that no one's done it better in tournament level fishing than this guy. And it's like that is that difference piece. I love that part of your video where you were talking about that, where you were positive mindset while you were re-rigging. You were talking yourself through. There was one other key here too that not a lot of people pick up on, but I do this, and sometimes I wonder if I'm shortchanging myself. But watching you do it actually gave me confidence that, no, I'm cool. You picked up a speed toad.
Yes.
You casted twice with it.
Mm-hmm.
And put it up.
Mm-hmm.
And, kept moving because you were just trying to see if you could get that reaction out of it.
Right.
Now, in my head, many times I keep wondering, now, did I screw up by not fishing that enough? Should I have thrown it out there a little bit more? Topwater's a different critter. I loved the fact of watching you do that. You wanted to see if you could get that reaction, realizing that they're not going to come after it. It's like, we're going to move on. And you went back, and I think it was like four more casts, and bang, you peeled it out.
Yeah.
I think with that space monkey, I think is what you hit him with.
That is what I hit that fish with. And, initially I think I threw a missile-based destroyer over that grass mat, and I reeled it off, and right as I got to the edge, I killed it. And I saw the mat move. Okay, I never felt the reason I missed that fish is I never felt the bite. Okay, I saw that fish move that entire mat, and I set the hook.
You had a premonition.
I was like, oh, he's got it, and there's no fish there, and so of course, like you said, I picked up the top toe because I'm like, well, if it's that active, it'll kill this thing, and I throw it over there twice, no reaction. So, I have a lot of luck on that space monkey, especially the green pumpkin one. If you'll die, the kicker's on it yellow. It kind of looks a little bit like a brim falling down in there with that yellow tail. And right now they're wanting to kill brim because they don't want them in their beds. They don't want them in there eating their fry. And I think I threw it in there 3 or 4 times, and finally, boom. And then once I caught that fish on that bait, I had it in my mind. I'm like, all right, this is going to be the deal today. And it ended up being, the bait that I caught 4 of the fish that were in my day 2 limit on. And I'll tell you, on day 1, it's what I caught all of my fish on. So
that's awesome, man. When you get that confidence, that's the go-to, right? You can fall back to that because 90% of the process of what we're doing out there on any given day, no matter how much we've practiced, is eliminating factors until we find the magic, right? Is it the spot? Is it the presentation? Is it the bait? Is it the direction I'm going from? Is it the wind? Is it the clouds? So when you get one of those that you can go, nope, this part is good now. I don't have to worry about anything else. That is so huge, right? I mean, that's such a game mover.
The only thing I worried about as the day went on is that I was going to run out of them. Because you saw how many misses were in that video. I mean, there were a couple fish I didn't even catch, but they were tearing the legs off that thing. Of course, every once in a while I get a brim bite and tear a leg off of it or so too, here and there. So that was a little bit of a legitimate concern. I did end up having enough throughout the course of the tournament, thanks to stocking up enough ahead of time. So
Right.
I survived that.
You know, like they say, brother, hook sets are free, so get after it.
I tend to do that. If you hadn't noticed on some of those videos. So.
Heck yeah! I mean, it's one of those things that it's the old adage, you're not going to catch them if that bait is not in the water.
I tell you,
people.
I fish. This is not an exaggeration. I probably fish 300 days a year.
That's awesome.
And it's almost Jedi-like sometimes when I've been out there so much that like nothing will even happen. And I look and something doesn't. There's like a spider sense where I'm like, something's not right, and I'll just set the hook and the fish will be there. And like I never felt the bite, it never really swam off, but I could just tell something's not right. But I think time on the water is so valuable, and
and it looks like we froze up here again. Hang tight. He comes right back, so we'll do our Jedi mind trick here and bring him back in.
Okay, there we go.
See?
But anyways, I think the time on the water is huge. The more time on the water you can spend, I think just the more comfortable you get with your equipment, the more comfortable you get with, how it feels when fish are, just barely kind of grabbing things, or they'll suck a bait in and just hold it, not swim off. And you kind of get just a better sense of when to set the hook and kind of how the fish behavior can impact the day.
One of the areas last year I started the season off just getting into the kayak scene, and I had kind of left the boat world in a slump where things just, I was having a hard time dialing things in. Started the kayak season beginning of the year last year. The slump came with me. Got really frustrated, pulled out of an entire month's worth of events. Like, nope, I need to reset some things in my head, and I need to get straight before I want to go spend money on this stuff again. And one of the best piece of advice that came in to me, two guys were the most instrumental. Josh Deal was one. He gave me some solid advice. And number two was Jody Queen. Jody told me, the TOW, man, time on the water. It just can't be in a tournament only. Gotta get out, and so that's literally what I did, man. I was going out 5 out of 7 days here locally, knowing I was going to water that I wasn't even sure there were bass in it. But I was out on the water, I was in the kayak, I was fishing, I was going through the motions, and I was getting comfortable. Sure as heck, we come back, next event, we go down, we get big bass on the event.
Nice.
We and you could just, regardless of where the results ended up, you could just feel it inside that things were clicking. And it was because of that time on the water. And I think, quite frankly, that's what hurt us in the beginning of the year. My first time I was on the water was Gunnersville, Bassmaster, down there. And that was a tough event to just make that my first outing for this, for the season. Those of us that live in the icy areas, we don't get a chance to get out as much and get on the water out there. But still, I should have planned it and done better. But that is the key, man. It's time on the water. It just gets you in a rhythm.
I'll tell you something about that resetting thing, though. We all need that. And my reset time is during duck season.
There you go.
I have one buddy that takes it really serious, and the rest of us just really goof off the whole time because you can talk, and it's really more about fellowship and hanging out with your boys. But I tell you, there's been times in the middle of a tournament where I've reset. I'm not kidding you when I tell you there was an event at Lake Fork where I went to my starting spot, and the year before I cashed a check, and it was just me and one other person there, and word had kind of got out. I go back the next year. There's like 9 people show up in this little bitty spot. I got so frustrated. Kid you not, I loaded up the kayak. I went and ate breakfast. I went to a restaurant, went and ate breakfast, went out, I went out, caught a limit afterwards because my brain was fresh. I wasn't frustrated anymore. Went out the next day, caught a limit, and ended up cashing a check. But sometimes, man, in the middle of the event, if you're that, just wound up or just feel like you need to reset. I mean, I've seen it be beneficial. Just go to the gas station, go look at baits. Like go grab a soda and piece, piece of candy or Snicker bar or something and just chill out for a minute and just go relaunch somewhere else and, start fishing. So, that reset thing can be good in the middle of a tournament sometimes too.
There's some wisdom to that, man, because one of the other pieces of information, advice that Josh Deal, the Real Deal, gave me that has carried through is, the catch photo release was such a new thing for me coming from the bass boat world. There was an anxiety that came with that. It's like timing. What am I going to need to get all this done? He explained it to me off air. We were sitting there chatting. He's like, 15 minutes. That's all you need to catch 5 fish, get them pictured, and get them uploaded.
Yeah.
15 minutes. That's your limit right there. And that's if you're, taking you 3 minutes to get it done. I can get a fish especially if I'm fishing braid most of the time. I'm boat flipping that bad boy. It's coming in right in my lap. And I mean, it's in with the another trick I was showing on my phone where I can just double click my little side button there. The camera comes immediately up.
Yeah.
And it's, get them on there, get them settled real quick, keep that board tilted. They tend to calm down for me a little better when I tilt that board, and bang. So it's like 2 minutes max, so it's that. But that point is, if you realize that you don't need 6 hours.
Right.
If you got something dialed in. Now, the higher the competition level goes up, you're going to need every minute you can get out there, because there's guys like yourself and Josh and many of these hammers out here that, dude, I mean, they're not only going to find fish, they're going to find big fish.
I tell you something that is not in the video that I wish I would have put in the video. On day 2, I actually went to 3 different launches. So I started
That's
the
awesome.
day. Started the day in the middle of the lake, and then after I ran that, and felt like I knew there had been a lot of people in that area the day before, but I knew there wouldn't be as many on day 2. And it's an area of the lake which is kind of nostalgic and really kind of a good story as well. It's the spot where I signed up for my first tournament and won it. The very first kayak tournament I ever fished was on Lake Conway, and I won it out of that spot. And it has bit me in the ass so many times since then that I swore to God I'd never go there again in another tournament. But what happened after day 1 is I knew that wind had blew bait all in that pocket all day the day before. And I was like, those fish are going to feed in the morning. If they don't feed anywhere else on the entire lake, there's going to be bait swimming around that little cove like nobody's business. And if there's fish in there, you'll catch them in a hurry. And even when I launched, there's a little rocky point there that I've caught some really good fish over. It's my favorite place in the whole world to fish on Lake Conway.
That's awesome, man.
But it's the place where I'm like, I'm not fishing here in a tournament. Not going to fish a tournament here. Not going to do it. But where do I find myself on day 2? Right? And I got a rattle trap in my hand, and I'm spot locked on that point looking at the clock. And I tell myself, I'm making 10 casts. Because if they're there, you'll catch them.
Yep.
And if they would have been on that point, I'd have caught 5 bigs in a hurry, but they weren't there. I made 10 casts. I put the autopilot on 2, and I'm like, I'm going to run this bank. If I don't get a bite before I get back to the truck, I'm loading up and I'm leaving. Well, before I got back to the truck, you saw I had 5 fish. They were in there. But I load up and I go to Pierce Creek area. And there were some really good fish in there. And it's one of the areas of the lake I don't fish at all. I went there, I think, Wednesday. And a buddy of mine was in there Wednesday. And we both caught them really good. And, the wind made it where people really couldn't fish. Am I still on?
Yeah, you're here. Oh, there he goes. So he sees the freeze before we do. Hang tight, he'll be right back here. This is our 7-second delay.
Sorry about that.
You're okay, bro.
Anyway, so the wind
worries.
made it where people couldn't really fish Pierce. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to give myself an hour over there and just go see if I can find those fish. Well, I go over there, I launch, and I didn't catch a single fish. The water was totally different color. It was totally just blown out from the wind. It was colder than what it was on that Wednesday. So I load back up, and here's what's funny. This is the part I wish I would have had on video. I take all the poles down and take the paddle and put it in the truck and left everything else in the kayak. Well, at some point, and I did it on purpose, but at some point I changed weights because of the wind, and I wanted to, have a little more feel. And I put my terminal tackle box, which I swear to God has to have $500 worth of crap in it, right, on top of my backpack. Well, now I'm hauling butt over to Palarm because I got a 14.5-incher in my limit. And I'm like, I know Corey Hopper, right? Like, he's a stick, man. Yeah. And I'm like, if that dude ends up finding him at the end of the day, I could be in trouble. And, of course, Marty Hughes is in there. And I'm like, if this guy finds those spawning fish, he could come up and catch me. So in my brain, I'm like, if I could just cull that 14.5-incher, I'm going to win this tournament. And so I haul butt, and I'm going from Pierce over to Palarm, and there's a really sharp curve in between there. And I hit that sucker, and I hear something fly out of the truck, hit the road, and go sliding across. And it's my terminal tackle box. And I see it go off the edge of the road into, this big grassy ditch. And so, I spin around and go back. I even call one of my buddies, Chris, and I'm like, dude, where are you at? He was with his kid at the zoo. I was going to get him to come look for my box, and I was just going to go fish, right? But I didn't want to leave it behind. So I'll pull over, and I'm just like, he can't help me. He's in Little Rock. And so I burnt, I'm not kidding you, 25, 30 minutes on the side of the road until I found that box. But I did find it. It was a Bass Mafia box. Shout out to them. No, they're not a sponsor. But that thing was still closed. Everything was still in it. That's I put awesome. It in there. I hauled butt over to Palarm, and I actually pretty much went straight off the ramp and straight across. There's some hard bank over there that I ran a chatterbait down and ended up culling that 14.5-inch fish. And, I kind of felt pretty confident after that and felt pretty good that, it was going to hold. But still, even then, like, I know Conway, even though it didn't show this, and, you heard some stories of people saying they lost some giant fish. I totally believe it. It's a lake that can produce 100 inches. And it can produce 100 inches in a spot the size of a coffee table. I've done it, and I've seen it, and I know it can happen. So even after that fish, I'll still fish hard till the end. Because, somebody can roll up on a spot and there'd be 5, 20-inch fish and a 23 in there rolled in with them.
So when I was leaving town, I was talking to Cody Kelly, the guy I interviewed before the event. He texted me as I was leaving town. He's like, "Hey man, how'd it go?" So I explained to him, it was pretty tough. Only one guy caught limit on both days, and he's like, "Oh man," he goes, "I was worried that weather was going to cause this." He goes, "I'm telling you right now, though, similar to what you said." He goes, "Between April and May," he goes, "you get in there April 15th range to middle of May range." He goes, "Man, this place is lightning in a bottle out there." And I'm like,
yeah.
It could have gone that way here had the weather been, cooperated a little bit more. Yeah, you could easily tell that this is a big fish lake. There's no doubt about it. They're there. What we experienced was just it's a freak thing, man. It's part of what we do. It's the weather.
How many times has a tornado hit today before a tournament?
Well, twice now, because were you at Gunnersville?
I was at Gunnersville, yes.
Yeah. And we had that hurricane winds coming through the day before.
I don't even remember all that, man. It's been a whirlwind so far.
It has.
I want to say I drove in the night before.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the day before, we had tornado warnings going off. There were literally 3 and 4 foot rollers coming on Gunnersville from the winds pushing up there. It was nuts. And it changed several of the areas, for us up there. But this is twice now. And then I want to say, Lake of the Pines, I think we had the same thing. We had some warnings going on there at Lake of the Pines.
I really, really regret not being able to go to that tournament. Work and the time off I've had for other events, it just wouldn't let me. But what a lot of people don't know about me is I grew up in East Texas. And Lake of the Pines is the lake where I caught my very first bass. First bass ever. I wanted to fish that event so bad, but with it having a Friday start, it was just, kind of hard for me with all the other time off work that I'm taking for other events. But I figured that one would show out and have a good turnout. It's a good lake.
Yeah, it's that was a. And the thing I liked about the Lake of the Pines over there too, and similar to Conway, is just the communities around the lakes, man. The people are so freaking friendly. They welcome anglers in. You know what I mean? It's like you don't feel like you're, they're happy to have the commerce coming into town, and they take care of you. I had one of the best hotels for the price. I couldn't believe how friendly the staff was, how clean the room was there, how the great central location down there at that Best Western. And it's fun to go to those places where the communities welcome the anglers as we come in.
Well,
that's always nice to have.
I think we could also, since I'm on here, and I'm from Arkansas, we could talk about where the championship's at. I'm not gonna attempt to pronounce the name of this lake because I screw it up every time. If you want to throw it out, but I know a little something about it.
Felsenthal Refuge.
Yes. So my duck hunting buddy that I mentioned, he is from that area, and he's got some. Now I've never fished it. Chris, I don't think has fished it a ton either, but he's got a buddy that still lives down there. And before this was ever announced, like years ago, Chris was showing me pictures of these giant bass. This buddy would go catching a flat bottom. I'm like, where's he catching these fish? And he would tell me that lake. And so I saw that on the schedule, and I'm like, oh, dude, how cool would it be, if I could get a chance to fish that championship? Yes. It's here in Arkansas, but I'm telling you, you guys, if there's something to shoot for that's going to be a lot of fun, the pictures that I've seen over the years from a duck hunting buddy of mine, because everybody duck hunts that lake too, from that lake, there's a lot of spots that boats can't get to apparently, and there's a lot of big bass in there. So it's going to shape up to be a really good championship, and he picked a really good lake. And it's kind of cool because a lot of people don't even know about it. I'm kind of curious how Josh even know to put it on there, but it's going to show out, y'all. It really is.
Well, and we have Mr. Booth himself here joining us, and as he said, the championship will be the first ever kayak bass tournament at Felsenthal. One of the things that I love about the All-American Kayak, and this is why, I'll go ahead and let the cat out of the bag. Next year, we're going all in on the All-American, and I'll probably, just because of location, unless these other events are in a strategical better location, All-American will probably be the only national series that I fish next year, just for, since our focus is on the nonprofit side of things. Mm-hmm. But one of the cool things is when you got an OG like Mr. Booth, who's been to the highest level of our sport, he's competed against the best of the best. He is a kayak angler, man. He knows us. And so his reason, how he knew, research.
Well, dude, I'm telling you, that place is going to show out. You're not going to want to miss it. I mean, if you get a chance to jump in an event and qualify, you need to do it. I mean, it's going to show out. I may have to get Chris to post some of those pictures, and maybe I can get them to you or something, just so you can show folks the quality of fish that come out of there.
Throw them up in the All-American Facebook page there.
Oh, I'll have to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's public group in there. Definitely throw it in there because that's. That's the biggest key. This thing is the payout is phenomenal. All-American. We go to awesome places that maybe a lot of people don't think about, and it's just a matter of getting the the reputation out there. Once people see how cleanly these things are run, the hooks that are in here. Good night. I mean, iron sharpens iron. I love the fact of who we fish against in the All-American. It may have only been 20, but it was 20 freaking hammers out there, man. That. You get no quarter, out there. So I love that. I love that high competition level, that who we face, is top rate.
Even some of the guys that y'all aren't as familiar with that jumped into the Bove, like, Larry Wisnat that fished that. Now, he struggled a bit. It was kind of cool to see him win the Ben Spangler prize that was out there.
Yep.
I really liked that Josh did that. But he's won a KBF event with like 80 people on it on that
Yep.
lake.
Nice.
You know, even Dave Schwab that fished it, you know, he didn't have his best event. He's familiar with that lake. He's a good stick. I mean, there were some good folks out there on that lake.
Yes, sir.
So, you know, even with it only being, you know, 21 folks or so, it wasn't handed to anybody. You know, you were going to have to work for it. And like I said, even on day 2, I was still kind of like fishing hard the whole time. I was not giving up. It's like I said, there's an opportunity. Somebody just roll up on a spot and find, you know, 520-inch fish within a, you know, 6-8 foot spot. And that is the weird thing about that lake.
Right.
And from what I understand, and I actually ran by Brad Harmon, who won the Ben Spangler event, and he was fishing. He fishes really slow. He's very patient, and he had an awesome limit on that first day. Like, I literally went by him because I can't fish that slow, right? So I go around and I'm just hitting cypress trees, and he was, you know, I think fishing lily pads or something like that. But you know, I don't think he fished a very long stretch at all. I think he stayed in a pretty closed little space from what I understood. And, you know, you can find them just grouped up on that lake. And if you find them like that, you know, you're going to do well. There's been a couple different times, you know, since I've lived in Conway now for 22 years. There's been a couple times I've gone on that lake and just I found them in a little spot the size of a kitchen table or something. And,
wow.
You know, I'll find, you know, 6-7 fish over 20 inches in one spot. It's kind of magic when it happens.
You know, and I'm looking forward to, you know, the next seasons here where we start to find these awesome places that don't get heavy pressure. And that's always fun to go to, you know, where you don't have to compete with a lot of boats, you know, that are out there. That's always nice. It keeps, you know, the safety factor in line for us and such. One of the things I wanted to talk about here, man, is was this your first All-American event fishing, or you fished a few of these in the past? And we lost him there. The tough questions always get him, folks. Hang tight here. He'll be back. One of these times, though.
Okay, so I'm back, man.
That's
Sorry
right.
about that.
Yeah.
You're saying one of the things you want to talk about was what?
Yeah, was this the and I apologize for not knowing a lot of this stuff up front here. I'm not
Oh,
a
it's all good.
journalist. Not a journalist. I have a lot of degrees. None of them are in journalism, I'll tell you that. Was this the first ever All-American Kayak Series event that you fished, or have you fished with us before?
I have fished 2 of them on Truman.
Oh, okay.
And I really enjoyed those. Let me tell you, that first one they put on, and even the second one, all of us that came up from Arkansas from really, I think 3 or 4 clubs that all went up there and fished, we were so impressed just with the door prizes. I mean, I think everybody at our table walked away with more than what their entry fee was in door prizes.
Everhart's is amazing, man.
Yeah,
they are phenomenal.
So
Josh
we were familiar with that, but as far as, you know, the trail goes, this was the first one that I had fished. I had it on my schedule, of course, you know, as soon as this was announced. Yep. I had originally put Lake of the Pines on there, but I ended up taking too much time off work to go to Chickamauga, to go to Guntersville, so I couldn't make that work with the boss and all that good stuff. So,
I hear you.
You know, I tell you another exciting event y'all got on the schedule this year is, I believe y'all are going up towards La Crosse into the Mississippi River pool.
So,
and
we are going to 13-14 on the pools, so that'll be down in Iowa. Bassmaster's going to La Crosse.
Okay.
We were in La Crosse last year.
Okay. Now, will that fish very similar to? I've never been in those pools.
Yeah, 13. I think looking at the topos, I've never fished them myself, but looking at the topos, you know, the Mississippi River is going to be the Mississippi River. Now, Pool 8 of La Crosse is its own critter, just because there's so many different things you can do on that one. Pool 9, though, I would say Pool 9, Pool 10, that looks very similar to me. I might be speaking out of turn here on this. You know, the Iowa guys that we have, like Tyler Cole, Jordan Westerman, Tim Gurley, Jeremy Brandis, all those guys. I'm betting they've fished that 13, 14 before. And
Now, if it's anything like that area up there where it's got that cleaner water than what we have down here on the Mississippi, man, it's a lot of fun. That was actually, I think, my favorite bass fishing I've ever done in my life. And I've been to Florida, I've been to Texas, I've been out to California. Look, you know, that upper Mississippi River area is just fun, phenomenal. Man. It's just so different and so cool. You know, especially if that frog bite's on, and I think the time of year y'all are going, it should be. So it could be a lot of fun if folks haven't ever been there. Might want to circle that one.
So Strawbridge wants to know, brother, are you going to try to get to the Mined Lands event in Kansas? Have you seen that on the schedule yet?
I did look at that. I saw that. I actually know some people that have been over there. You know, I don't have a lot on the schedule in September either, so
nice.
I may try to squeeze that one in.
I was gonna say, let's do her. Let's go.
Yeah.
I'll call you in sick.
Right.
Yeah. That. So, do you primarily fish the KBF events, bass, or Hobie? What do you?
You know, last year was the first year that I actually chased a trail.
Oh, okay.
Every other year, I've just fished whatever comes to my region, right? So
perfect.
I'll, you know, pick an event in Tennessee and, you know, may fish a couple in Texas or Oklahoma or whatever. And just something within, you know, 6 hours driving distance. Last year, I won the first Bassmaster event. And I was like, well, when you ever going to have a chance to be in first Wrangler of the year again? You know, you'd be an idiot not to go try this.
Right.
So I pretty much dumped my schedule for the most part and just went and chased all the Bassmaster events. Now, I enjoyed those quite a bit. Unfortunately, this year, they're spread all over the dadgum place, and they're just so far, which is kind of why I like the All-American and just kind of what they're trying to make it regionally. You know, I think that's a good approach. You know, that's not a knock on Bassmasters. They're trying to do the best they can, I think, to meet the anglers' needs across the country. So I've got a couple Hobies, you know, on the list, a couple of the Bassmasters. You know, this All-American, I'm looking at that one there in Kansas as well. And, you know, I have shied away from KBF over the last year. I just feel like there's a lot of organizational changes there, you know, that, you know, we'll just kind of see where things land with them. Although they do go to Grand Lake here in April. I have kind of eyeballed that because I'm pretty good on that lake. So I may jump in that one. That would probably be the only one I would do, though.
Now, doesn't Grand Lake have the 150 yards or feet from the shore that a kayak has to stay?
It does, but man, if you watch the video on that lake, you'll find out you really don't have to go more than 10 foot from the bank. So, you know, my strategy on Grand is just go behind all the boat slips. I take like 2 or 3 poles and that's it. And I mean, I literally just go behind I'm sitting here doing this under all the cables all day, the big boat marinas and all that. And I'm fishing behind them because the boats, if you'll watch any of the Elite Series or any of the FLW, MLF events, the boats, literally, they just go around the boat docks and fish the walkway. And then they go to the next one, fish the walkway. Go to the next one, fish the walkway. So we kind of have an advantage over them in kayaks that we can just go under all the cables and go to the next walkway. We can cover more walkways over the same, you know, time frame than what they can because they're having to go kind of in and out of them.
Yep, for sure. Good stuff. So also before one of the other things, what is it? So when you're not going out and winning tournaments and nailing brown and green fish all over the country, what is it that you do for a living, man?
I actually manage medical clinics. So I work for a company called RCare, and they're what you call an FQHC. So they're federally funded health clinics, and we put health clinics in rural areas where folks wouldn't normally have access to a primary care provider. So it's really meaningful work. I've been in the healthcare leadership, you know, kind of industry for 13 years now. This is my niche. This is what I like to do. There's a lot of folks here in Arkansas that are underserved. We provide care for those folks.
That's
And,
awesome.
My buddy Chris, who has had some experiences of his own. I know you guys are big with the veterans. He's a former officer, that, oh,
He'll be back. Hang tight. He sees it coming before we do.
all right, I'm back. But
You see it coming before we do. So unfortunately, we've not caught you like in any weird face pose or anything that I was trying to like snapshot.
but anyways, I was saying, Chris, great guy, was an officer, he had being a first responder essentially. He had some pretty traumatic experiences as well, and kind of had to get out of that line of work because of that. And we were able to bring him onto the company as well, and give him a job helping transport our folks. Because a lot of these folks in Arkansas, that just are struggling economically, they may not have transportation. Well, we have some grant funding to have a van, and who better than to go, pick up your grandma that doesn't have transportation than somebody that used to be a police officer, somebody that's a good old boy that hunts and fishes, can help her get in, get out. So very thankful to that guy, and, our whole company that really, wraps our arms around these folks here in Arkansas and is doing it right now as we've been, impacted by the tornadoes. But so when you hear me say, man, I really just can't get away from work, some of it's me. I mean, some of it's, I can't leave right now because we got a lot going on and I need to be here. And, with those 7 clinics, I tend to be the leadership there to, kind of rally the troops. And I know when the timing's right, where I can kind of step out and get away. And I know when, maybe we've lost, a key player or, or getting a new key player or something like that. And I really need to kind of stick around. So just kind of keep a pulse on things and, help provide as much care to the community as we can.
That's awesome, man. That,
Well, thanks.
If there's one thing, excuse me, that I have learned about the kayak fishing community is just the amazing people that are involved in this. And I am going to just narrow it right to that kayak bass fishing community. Not only are these, the clubs tend to be, extremely welcoming, but there's people like yourself, man, that you fish at the highest level that's out there, but at the same time also, they're just you're a damn good human being, brother, and that's the thing I love so much about being involved with this whole piece out there is the overall communities themselves. So that's super cool to hear, man. That's we can respect that. Yeah, that was the epiphany we had as well. That
yeah.
Time to hang up talking about, hey, buy my fishing rod, buy my jig, and start. Hey, have you heard about what kayak fishing can do for a section of our community that absolutely more than deserves it, and has more than paid for a little bit of peace of mind, type thing. And kayak fishing can do that. So awesome, man. So what's the future hold? You just going to keep doing what you're doing? You got any big aspirations when it comes to things that you're looking for with the fishing scene here, or beyond what we've talked about? And we know you want to get to Felsenthal, and so that's going to be fun.
I think I want to continue to expand my YouTube a little bit. I got a really great response from this last video. I think the voiceover helped quite a bit.
That was fire.
I think each one's getting a little bit better. I want to work on that throughout the course of the summer. Video more events, kind of give feedback. I like, sharing information. As you mentioned, some folks won't do that. I don't mind doing that because, guys, I didn't have somebody that I grew up with that taught me how to bass fish. All right. I learned all this from other people. I, fished big boat events with my brother down in Hot Springs, and we got our tails whooped by people that are now pros, that are now on MLF and, fishing the elites as well. But I would stick around at weigh-ins and talk to people. Be like, hey, man, if you don't mind sharing, tell me a little bit what y'all did. And some people would and some people wouldn't. And then I've been in the boat with people that are just better than me. And that I really encourage people to do that too. Go fish with somebody you know that's better than you.
Absolutely.
And just go watch them a little bit. And my buddy Eddie Brown, that lives down in Texarkana, that I grew up with, this guy is a heck of a stick. And I always knew how to catch fish, but that's the guy that taught me how to catch big fish and big female fish and how to target those. And I got a chance to go fish Lake Fork with him back in February. And dude, I've been in the boat with that man I don't know how many times. And I picked stuff up and learned stuff this last trip that I actually used to cull that last fish. And one of those things was a trailer that Missile Bait has put out called Spunk Shad. And that's what I had trailered on that chatterbait whenever I ended up catching that 17, I think, and a half inch fish that culled that 14-inch fish. But, just go with people that can show you a little something different, a little different presentation that you can pick something up from, I think goes a long ways.
That's awesome.
But, I encourage people to continue to learn and be open-minded. But, I plan to chase a few Bassmaster events, chase a few Hobie events, and then expand that page a little bit, like I'm saying, as far as YouTube goes, and get ready for Pheasantfall, however you say it there.
Pheasantfall.
Like
Yep.
that.
I can't say the second part. I always want to say Wichita River, but I know it's not pronounced
A
like
Washita,
that.
yeah.
A Washita.
I can handle
okay.
that one.
See, I'll do the first, you get the second.
There you go.
Well, listen, man, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your busy schedule, man. I know you're doing the rounds tonight, so I'll get you out of here so you can maybe go squeeze into dinner with the family there or whatnot. And absolutely 100%, it was a pleasure fishing against you out there and getting a chance to meet you firsthand. And, dude, as many All-Americans as we can get you in, absolutely. We'd love to have you out there. Like you said, fishing against, the top anglers out there is what makes these things so great, especially when you're surrounded by good folks out there. And that's exactly what the All-American represents to me. And so, yeah, you're right there. Here we go. Josh threw this up for us.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, man.
Nice. Thanks.
Well, man, I appreciate Josh and the crew and All-American Series coming down. Appreciate you coming down and having me on the podcast. A lot of good folks that came to that event. I taught the folks at the ramps and at the awards piece. And, there's a lot of good guys that fish this series, and that was pretty cool. Yeah,
it was absolutely, it was definitely very cool to kind of meet everybody there and catch up with Marty and yourself and a few other guys. So looking forward to the next ones on there. Are you going to be at the Classic this year?
I think what was the date on that?
Truman Classic. We have coming up. It's at the end of April here. I want to say the 28th, Friday, Saturday.
I actually might be around for that. I may slide into that. I haven't had much luck on Truman, but that last trip I took on day 2, I think I found an area that might could do something.
Because there is a trail event on Truman going on at the very same time as the Classic, so you can basically enter them both, double dip on it, and basically because that also covers a trail series event.
I know. I think Larry and Dave that fished the Conway tournament were talking about going. So it really, I would probably have guys to hang out with and, maybe camp with or whatever they're going to do.
There you go.
So I'll definitely be thinking about it.
Awesome. Well, and hopefully the weather, starts shaping up here a little bit, and you guys can get out of the issues you guys are dealing with down there, and things calm down a little bit at work for you. So, again, brother, thank you so very much, folks at home. Follow him at Garrett Morgan Outdoors. You can catch him on all of the major social medias and YouTube. This is the big one here. Go out there to YouTube at Garrett Morgan Outdoors. Give a good subscribe. Hit that bell. Do the same for the True Patriot Outfitters and the All-American Kayak Series. While you're at it, give us a follow, give us a like, shares, and all that good stuff. Garrett, my brother, thank you so very much, man, for stopping by, and we're looking forward to catching you at the next one.
All right, man. Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
See y'all next round.
Take care.
Gotta call up, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3,